Kalyani Banke. Now I think Indian speech and hearing people know me. I have realized it the way I keep getting messages from different people and all that. So especially younger generation is sending me a lot of acknowledgements. And it's when I have given different webinars, as I told you that I have given almost 20 presentations in last 4 months. Anyway, I came to speech and hearing program is very accidental. Actually, I wanted to do physiotherapy because that was the only course I knew. That's something paramedical as such. And that time, those courses were run by all Mumbai Corporation. So people domiciled Mumbai would get the admission. Outsiders had no option. There was some incidents happened in BYNR hospital prior to my 1 year prior to my admission, and then two post vacancies were created for rest of Maharashtra. So that's how I could get the entry in that. But one thing I must say, I really like audiology from day one. Means something means people often ask me, how do you know audiology so well? So I always say that first word I said when I was 2 year old was decibel. so, but what I mean to say, I really liked it. So anyway, I graduated. Of course, that time picture was not very clear, but I wanted to study further. Here, I want to sort of give little credit to my father. He asked, 21-year-old, and now marriage age, and there is nothing forward to look forward to it and all that. My father asked me, what is next? I said, I want to go abroad to study. And it was very difficult as such. So he said, what is your roadmap? I said, I have nothing. I'm just going to start writing letters and all other things and explore the possibilities. So he said, how many years should I wait for that? And I told him, give me 5 years. And he agreed for that. So I think, I really owe a lot to him because as a father, he believed in me. And think about in 70s, like saying something to father and saying, yes, 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 you do that. So that was something really means I acknowledge him a lot. He saw that potential. There was another interesting thing happened. Of course, I was not getting any admission to any program as such. I had sent so many letters. See, open Jack Cat's book, find out the university name and write to them. So that was shooting in the dark. And most of the things were topmost universities, which was next to impossible to get admission. But I had no channel also to look for it and all other things. So in one of the social meetings, I happened to meet one ENT surgeon, Dr. Mahatme, in 1979. And we had just some interaction. And he said, are you interested to work in England? So I said, yeah, I am. So anyway, and so he said, give me your biodata. That time when I was little nervous, my father had a transferable job, so he had in other city. So I called my father. I said, I met this doctor, and this is something he has asked me by biodata. What should I do? So he said, you give your biodata. Meanwhile, we'll find out. Then we found out the link, who's who kind of thing. Then that was okay. And that Dr. Mahatma told me, you will hear from me within 1 month time. And that was it. It happened that, in his department in Barnsley Hospital, South Yorkshire in England, he offered me a job. So then now I want to quote another interesting thing, how it's, the some thought process are in your back of your mind and you get ignited about it. So this is, I want to give my credit to my grandmother. My grandmother, she was born in 1900, okay? And then 1918, she was working in a school. Means such a progressive family. So my grandfather allowed her to work, but unfortunately, society gave her very hard time, and she worked only for 1 year, and then she discontinued. But then, what I want to really say about it, that kind of a mindset she had. So in 1967, two of my cousin sisters got married and went abroad. And then my grandmother had said, "You will not do this. You will go on your merit." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'll do that." So 1967, that means I was 12 years old. So what is the harm saying, yes, I will do it, kind of thing. I did that. So in 79, when I was to leave for England, my grandmother opened her diary and she showed me that she had marked that Kalyani will go on her merit to abroad, and if she does so, I'll give her 100 rupees. So she came and gave me that 100 rupees. But I owe that to her, that she really ignited my mind. This is something, it's always a retrospection. At that time, you don't think about it. But why I was so positive, possessive or positive about it, I want to go. So somewhere, back burner, that thought was there, kind of thing. So anyway, so in 1 year I worked in Barnsley, and that was audiometry technician job, that way it is in England as such. And of course, I had no interest to stay there as such. And that time, Margaret Thatcher was prime minister. The education policy had changed significantly. So there was no way I could get an admission in England. It was very challenging. So it was out of question. So then I changed my focus, and then started correspondence to USA universities. And then I got admission in Northeastern University, Boston. So I went there. So 1980, I went to USA and studied there for 2 years. And of course, I did my CCC for 1 year. So 3 years stay in USA. Again, that was the interesting part, at that Mary Florentine, the lady, stalwart in psychoacoustics. So she was my professor at that time. And she was after me, joined me in MIT for my lab and all other thing. Of course, psychoacoustics was not something my cup of tea, but she always felt I have that flair for it. She used to say that. But then I thought about, if I join her and I start working in MIT and all, my doors to go back to India will be closed, because psychoacoustics in 80s was something, what am I going to, come back and do here as such? And somewhere I really felt I'm a very clinical person. I'm really, so I said, thank you very much, but I want to go back. And so 1983, I came back to India. So that's how this started. Actually, 75, I graduated, and then I worked for 4 years in India, different hospitals. So clinical sets were, well developed, because that's another thing I really felt was that, the decision making or what is next and all other things were really good. That's again because my clinical postings were in Tough Medical and Mass Annual and topmost hospital as such. And the professor used to carry pride, we are sending the best student to you, kind of thing. But I think the skill sets were developed in India. But at that same time, I had noticed those who had joined immediately after the graduation, undergraduate program, they had challenges, because we were a group of 6, 7 people, and three of us had worked in India and then went abroad. We were very comfortable, and three had joined right away, and they were saying, "Oh, we didn't know this. We have not been taught this and that, and all other things." So, but the good part about it is, it's an easy way to study in USA. It's with our own pace, and more discussions, and finding out the information and doing reference work, versus information bombarding in India. And that tradition has not changed. It's getting worse and worse and worse. I really don't know why we want to do all that. The brain has to take all that information, assimilate it, and you cannot recall. As and when I'll see that patient, I'll remember. Actually, now, with technology, any reference is just at the one click. You don't have to go to the library also. So I think the structure needs to be changed. We are very rich in clinical experiences, no doubt about it, but structure needs to be changed. We settled. I got married in Pune, so it was like destiny was to be in Pune. There was no job, only one position in hospital. So I had no choice but to start with it. So I had started working with two ENT doctors, one Dr. Tepan, MG Tepan, and Dr. Atre. But they were just paying 500 rupees, as part-time position as such. That cannot take you further. So again, I want to acknowledge one ENT doctor. Sometimes, it's nice to meet the very harsh and honest people as such. So, this late Dr. Mohan Jo, he was FRCS and he had excellent practice. So I happened to go there and ask him that whether I can work in his clinic. And he was so angry. He said, "See, this is my practice, my business. It's meant for me, and here I'm not going to do any charity. So the jobs are okay in the hospital. I'll give you a job in the hospital, but nothing to do in my clinic." And his wife used to do audiometry. So I had thanked him so many times. I said, "You really stepped on me," and that's how you had to prove myself that I have to be independent. So sometimes it just sort of certain incidences, but I think many ENTs may be feeling same way. He was honest to tell me that don't come to my clinic. So anyway, but it was challenging to make a private practice. Then I had approached many ENT doctors. Everybody was saying, there is no scope. And I told them that I just want to be in audiology, which was not palatable. They said, if you do speech therapy, we will think about it. I said, I'm not interested. I don't want to do it. Um, I said yes to couple of pediatrician, and then I happened to had 4 or 5 cases. But then I just did for 1 month, and I said no, I did, because 4 or 5 cases, and then your main day work goes in that speech therapy, which I don't want to do it. Then why should I be saying them? And then I just closed that door and I said no, I just want to focus only in audiology. So that was the thing as such. So the ENT is very, very hard. And Miss, again, coming back to the same thing that India, I don't know, this mission commission is on since 75, even today also, and all that. People had asked me what you will give me and all. I said, no, nothing. Then I started saying, you do your routine audiometry work, and only those difficult to test cases, or you had difficulty in spending time with them, you send those cases to me because I have enough time. but, but nothing worked. So I decided to do advertisement, because in the USA I had seen that advertising mode had started. If you remember, in the 80s, audiologists entered in private practice in good number in the USA. Till that time, that was not the trend; it was institutional job as such. So I had seen those models, what was there as such. Now to start advertisement, again, it was very challenging. So where to look for it, what kind of advertisement we can do on thing. So I just referred all IMA guidelines. I wrote to IMA also, because my husband being a medical doctor, with his name sort of, we are starting this practice and all other thing. IMA never responded to any of the communication. But the only message what I got from that, all I studied all those things, you can give advertisement about services available, and you cannot sort of make tall claims about yourself, or you cannot say the best audiologist, number one audiologist. A name should not be projected anywhere. So anyway, then we decided to name my clinic as Manki Hearing Services, and then we started advertising. We started with classified ad. That was, I think, there's 50 rupees per insertion or something like that, and that's how. But then that made a road for me. Then it was never looking back. Just created our own image. Uh, I think 7, 8 years maybe. Till that time, it was just making, two ends meet kind of thing. Because see, I was selling pocket model hearing aid, that RFI, Elcon and all, and that lowest price was 550. Okay, so one day actually I had sold 5 pocket models of 550 each. So that was my highest earning at that day. But that was very challenging because unless the number goes up, things would not have been easy as such. So 7, 8 years must have been. Early days were very difficult, very difficult. See, I was working with these two ENT doctors for 3 hours every year. So my clinic time was only for 4 hours, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening, as such. So 5, 6 cases used to be there. But then, that repair work suddenly started. Means testing or buying a new hearing aid, instead of that, the service of the hearing aid and all. We started making ear molds because nobody was making ear mold then. So I started making in-house ear mold and all. So that was taking a lot of time of us. Me and my husband used to do at night, 9 o'clock at night, we'll sit on the grinder and start grinding all the molds and all that. So the service component really took me forward, that. And other thing is autosclerosis number is significantly high in India. Or at that time, of course, discharging ear comments, miliary pathologies number was very high. So all those cases, if they would come, I would spend time and I'll ask them to go to the ENT doctor for treatment. So my sort of image became that patients would say, go to Dr. Manke and ask her, should I see the ENT doctor or not? And if she says yes, then go to the doctor. And Dr. Tapan was one of the finest surgeon in the country. He really did wonderful job. I call him king of middle ear surgeries. It's such a result oriented surgery and everything. So I was very comfortable to tell him, all the patient go to Dr. Tapan and all that. And so that was a reward, that people will say Kalyani Manke listens to you and she guides you. She doesn't sell hearing aid. So I think, and even today also. But interestingly, I mean, later on, of course, when Dr. Tapan's era was over and all other things, other ENT doctors started coming in. Good number of people felt very offended. Who is Kalyani Manke to tell the patient that go to the ENT doctor? So they never took it positively, that we can walk together, we can have, handshake with the professionally. I know my limitations, you know your limitations, and so we should walk together. But that kind of thing was not there. GS Parkhe Industrial Award, it's a highly respected award in Maharashtra. It's a industry recognizes that award very highly, and they opened the service sector first time, and in service sector I got that prize. So that is something I really feel, means Chamber of Commerce people recognize me that she's the one who got the first service award as such. So the common man or the industry, other than our speech and hearing profession, recognizing your work matters a lot. And of course, then Isha oration, because Isha is very dear to me. So this is something is I really felt that I got Isha oration. That was good. Then, of course, Asha's recognition also, because at international level, that somebody is recognizing your work. And somewhere, I always see Asha, people are looking at bigger Asha Didi. Means we refer to everything to Asha. What Asha says, what Asha is doing, what is the document and Asha is saying. So it's here all the time, the Asha becomes a reference point as such. And so Asha Award also, then later on. See, Pune geographically located means connected to 6 districts, means Solapur, Aurangabad, Nagar, Kolhapur, and all that. And all these districts are like for 3 to 5 hours one-way travel. Okay, so these are the people sort of became coming into me. So they were not all Puneites, but maybe 60% were outsiders initially. Now it is like still 40% people are outsiders, means people now from all over Maharashtra people come, means from reverse side, from Mumbai also people started recently last 2 3 years, but that is because commuting in Mumbai is becoming more difficult, so they feel to come to Pune is easier kind of thing. But that's just the current scenario. But then other than that, nothing. I have a good listening ear. I keep listening to people, patients as such, and I never say do this or do that, or if I were you or kind of thing. So I keep always saying these are the options. Now, what is ready, what is good for you is your decision. And if person is not really sure about it or dicey, I make the closure very fast. I don't waste time in that. And I always tell, when you are ready, I'm ready. So today's session is like to think about it. What you got the information, what is hearing loss, what is hearing aid, what are the benefits you are going to get out of it, and all other thing. It's done. We are not going to take any decision. Go and sleep on this, and then we will think about it. And I have noticed people do come back. They do come back. Means it just they need time. We need to walk with their pace. So I'm not a person with any kind of push sell. I don't do at home also. I don't tell my children, so but I would not do that to clinic or in the clinic. So. Everybody hates me. Everybody hates me. So there are few things we don't discuss discount strategy over the phone. It will be always on the face to face. I don't give more than 10% discount to anyone. So that's a principle. Only thing we have made it. This is very interesting. It's an exchange offer in month of September, 15th of September to 15th of October. Bring your old hearing aid and get the new hearing aid. This is a 29th year. This is right now will be on. So people know it also. And actually that started early days when pocket model hearing aids were there, and then completely knocked down hearing aids were there. Earlier I had learned repairing from RFI, and we used to do the repair work in the clinic itself. And people would not leave us, madam, और एक बार करके दो ना, और एक बार करके दो, and this is beyond repair. And it used to get so difficult for us. So that's how I thought about it. I think this hearing aid should come to me only and not to them. So that's how that exchange offer we defined it. And that is the only time we give 20% discount. So 4 year or 5 year old hearing aid has to come to me, and then you will get a new hearing aid. So that really hit the chord, for all the people as such. It has become very successful issue as a, so 20% discount only in the this exchange offer. Rest of the time is 10%. Doctors call, all doctors will say my closest relative, my best friend, Rest of the time they will not refer the case, but these are the things. So give the discount. And I always tell, doctor, you know I don't give a discount. So it's your call. You can go anywhere else. So people hate me, but that's okay. You know, I'm not here to please each and every person. So I'm a very proud person saying that I have not given a penny to any person. If at all any benefit is given to my clients, and that's it. And my database is 50,000 plus cases. So what else do you need, you know? So, and now people are so proud, you know, like day before yesterday, the person said, Madam, I'm buying the sixth pair from you now. So this is so common, like sixth and seventh and eighth pair as such, because now that, you know, the tradition is like for almost 35, say 38 years have gone. So things are. I personally really like teaching. Means even if I look back, like I think I'm an academician first. I did not get that opportunity and I started private practice. So had it been that choice, probably I would have been in teaching. And secondly, like, you know, as you said, I like to talk to people and give, you know, give the message. I always think about what is the message I can give. Means that's one thing is always there. What is a take home message? I just don't want to read book or I don't want to make the slide. I have to give a take home message. So that's how sort of, so I enjoyed going to different things, places, seminar, workshops and all other things. But it has a short life, you know, it cannot go on long term. And once I think two union in Bombay and I think Bharati Vidyapith had asked me for master's program to teach one full paper. But now clinical practice has become so big, you know, so, and then my other the social activities and all, then I realized I can't do that kind of a reading, you know, like every day and deliver it. Once in a while, it's okay, but not every day. So I stayed away from all that. So actually, initially I started in this diploma in deaf education program. That was immediate, I think 83, 84. And then, so for a long time, I was teaching in all different programs in Maharashtra, Nashik, Nagpur. See, the need for to survive was so hard. Anybody will invite me, I'll say yes and I'll go. Because the remuneration was so minimal as such to, so to meet both the ends was itself very difficult. So I had given lectures in, across Maharashtra. But then later on, sort of after Isha things, you know, like it became then workshop, seminar, conference. That's how that kind of thing increased significantly. Students are same, they are enthusiastic, they want to learn new things and they want to bring the change. They are really charged to do it. It's our responsibility to keep their motivation up, you know. Then they feel sorry later on, but the whole thing is they're always enthusiastic. Yeah, it's if you remember that one song, Bajpayee, late Prime Minister, had School Chale Hum, and that film was, you know, used to be telecast. So how children are happy to go to school, you know, every morning and all. And I always see anytime any school, preschool, high school, you see children come running to school. They love to be there, you know, they love to be there. Maybe socialization, maybe something else, peer group learning, lot of other things. They want to be there. It's our teacher's job to motivate them, to ignite them, to keep them, you know, their moral high. And that inquisitiveness, I think we fail there, you know, we do poor job. There may be various reasons for it. I don't want to point out at such, but then the gap comes, you know, sort of. '99, I became EC member. That was just I wanted to be in because something I, you know, always will be the insider, you know, then only you can, your voice will be heard or whatever. I always feel that way. Sitting on the fence or in the audience cannot bring any change. But other than that, there was nothing more to it. But this was something very interesting happened in 2002. The Ishakon was in Delhi. And in general body meeting, Mr. Oza raised a lot of points about Isha's documentation and rules and accounting and all other things. And there were a lot of irregularities. And he said things are not just going straight. There needs to be a full stop. And if you're not going to do all that, I'll take this to the matter to the court. So anyway, people said that, okay, we will do it, this, that. So he gave a rider that let Kalyani Manke be the secretary, and then we will think about it. So I became acting secretary at that time, and that's how sort of I entered into Isha. And then I realized it's, it's no one's fault, but before they realized, people just they never made any systematic, what should I say, roadmap. What is association? Why we want to do it? What are our objectives? Are we following it or not? The Ishakon was just one mela, kind of thing, and that's it. So may not be intentional, but like 67, the association one form, and up to 2002, everything has become haphazardly. There was no documentation whatsoever. So at that time, Dr. Subbarao was the president. So he and me, we decided that we will just start writing the processes. That one thing is, I'm very much for it, needs to be documented. Everything needs to be documented. How to conduct the meeting, what should be the agenda, and how the meeting call and all other things. Then how to conduct the conference and what kind of communication and how it should be and all other things. So that really brought a lot of real sea change in it, So it was due over sort of, and then but then I served 2 terms as secretary. So I got enough sort of duration to create an impact. Dr. Goswami was there with me for the treasurer, so that was good. He's very good in drafting. So this was something really, so it's a teamwork. It's not, I'm not saying that I'm the single person I did it, but I want to acknowledge Mr. Manoharan. He always used to tell me, lady with invisible cane. So he said, "क्या हमें डर लगता है?" And I used to always say, "नहीं, we have to be, doing this thing as such." But Shiv Shankar was great help in drafting rules. So all this, so we jointly did it. Then Ishakon became more organized activity. Accounting, we became answerable to it and all other things. But now things have really gone way up. Means Dr. Krishna, as a secretary and now as a president, he has done phenomenal work, far better than what I have done. Actually, secretary has a more role to play than the president. Because president, like just for the stammer, it's a tenure is only 1 year. See, you're president-elect 1 year, then president, and then former president. But these 2 years are sort of passive roles. So as a president, and within 1 year, you really cannot bring all that change. So only thing in my tenure, of course, scope of the practice document we released, that was the only thing. But other than that, but as a secretary, I think I did more things, than all other. But once you climb the ladder, no, so you need to go to the president post, and then the people say goodbye, and then you don't come back to us again. So you're retired. So it's a message. Your term is over. Now take it positively. So, but yeah, but it's a so and it gives a satisfaction. It's sort of like 12 years service to Isha, and now still I'm connected. Means I am connected with all EC members and all the discussion and all. I take active part in all that. So. RCA has been a disappointment for various reasons, we need to understand their perspective, why, the things are not moving, or why people are so sort of apprehensive about it and all other thing. It's an expert committee of speech and hearing, formulates everything, hands over to RCA office, and RCA is just an execution body, you know. So it's an expert committee needs to be more dynamic. But again, the whosoever sits on that chair, you know, what is his agenda, it moves that direction. So that's how this, you know, curriculum development and all other thing. Who developed it? Oh, people over there have done that, you know. So why did it do that way? That why we want to give information bombarding to BSLP and ASLP? Or the simple mistake for DHL is what has happened. The title of the program, it says assistant to speech and hearing, diploma in speech and hearing and all, and the person will work as assistant to speech. But if you study all the curriculum, it says differential diagnosis, management, intervention, counseling. So all professional skill sets are mentioned over there. Now, how can you say that we have given this much information? You might have given, but the person who is qualified will show, see, I am allowed to do intervention, I am allowed to do diagnostic, I am capable of handling differential diagnosis, I am a counselor, I am looking into management. So such a big mistake has happened and it has not been rectified. Now, as you are aware about speech and language assistant program in USA and audiology assistant, see how it is phrased. Assist doing this thing, you know, preparation of the patient and then to assist means nowhere you are giving the full charge to that patient. That duties are defined so well, nobody will cross the boundary. And here we gave them a red carpet. आप आओ करो सब कुछ आपके लिए है. That's how it has happened. And I really don't understand. This is the expert committee who needs to change this. We need to, the people say, being outside, we can't do anything. I'll raise the voice. I'll sign the letters. I will make a, you know, drive for the signatures and all. Who is the decision maker? Who will bring the change? The expert committee. Now, expert committee should feel, arey, galti ho gayi hai, something has gone wrong, let's rectify it. There is no point pointing out here and there who did and what. Mistake has happened, sometimes decisions go wrong, that's okay. Let's rectify it. And that has not been done and 20 years have passed. So actually DHL's number is surpassing speech and hearing people.
Oh my God.
So naturally, see, in 1 year, suppose for just example, 100 DHL students come out. So in 4 years, 400 students, you know, DHLs will come out. By that time, only one batch of BASLP comes out. So DHLs will always will outnumber us.
Wow.
So we really, so somewhere it needs to be taken very seriously. But I don't know who and how people will do it. I have no idea. RCI, you know, one thing is because of that act, it's a Parliament Act, so we have a lot of limitations to it. You know, you cannot change all other things. It's, you know, how the mistakes have happened. When the first RCI Act was done, at that time, 2 institute heads were in that committee. They made audiology, speech language pathologist, speech therapist, ear mold technician, is that so many categories were created. How, what was there? You know, that means I think it started from there itself. Then the Babu log, they will just see what is done by the committee. So RCI, but I don't think we can come out of RCI. People all the time talk about it because it's a, you need to go to some other council. Okay, a new council needs to be formed. You have to prove it that what RCI has done wrong to you, what damage RCI has done to you, what is the harm it has happened to professionals or something. We have nothing to prove. So how can you will not stand in the court of law also that we want to come out of RCI. So it's better to be in and get better. You know, that's what my personal feeling. Of course, others have different opinion, they will not like it. So, but so it's be inside and improvise it, get things better as such. Soft skills are essential. It's like, I think you would agree, in your speech language also program there are soft skills. We are in communication and we are poor communicators, so this is something is utterly essential. That's very first part of it. Yeah. Secondly is the counseling skills. Counseling is not do's and don'ts. Actually, theories of counseling and all needs to be explained clearly. And counseling for different age group. Everybody is not, bachu, means everybody thinks about it. And the whole thing, what happened, the speech and hearing program is geared up with the pediatric population. And when they come out in the practice in the real world, is dominated by adult population. So the bridging of that gap is very much essential. And clinical skill sets, I think that confidence level needs to be still up. Maybe, uh, I don't know that hands-on experience is lacking, or their confidence level is not really monitored well, or like what they feel, whether the individual can do it independently. I think our one handicap in Indian context is over the shoulder supervision, and which I just don't like it. I always tell the students, I'm not going to be with you. I'll see the report, and looking at the report, I'll ask you the questions of things, and then I'll know what it is. You're not going to ask me that whether my interpretation is right or wrong. You need to know it now. You don't take approval from me, madam. Can I write mixed hearing loss? Can I write sensory neuralizer? And you're not sure about, then you're not using your analytical mind to derive the diagnosis as such. So those kind of things are there. But again, they are just overtired people, that they too much of information, and that confusion at the externship, they think about, should I go to speech and language? Should I go to audiology? I can't decide myself. So that conflict is there. But nowadays I've started telling people, take a break, just work for 1 year. And then, you think about yourself, what you really want to do it, whether you're good in speech language or whether you're good in audiology. Then, it's in your call. Means basically it's not in classroom what you really do. It's something, calling for profession matters. That if your inner voice says, I want to do in speech and language, go ahead. So that kind of thing, but they're not giving that time. So, but that's the Indian way. BA हो गया कि MA करना है, BSc हो गया MSc करो. Don't stop because now or never. That's so wrong. That is very wrong. Private practice is very encouraging, but I don't think everybody is really ready to be entrepreneur. And again, coming back to the same thing, like, am I really ready to take all the responsibility, decision? Can I handle the economics and all other things? So one needs to see that. So good number of time I tell them that work with ENTs. There is no harm in that. 1 year, you work with the ENTs, hop on up, a kind of thing, explore different, areas. And 2 or 3 years later, then you decide what you want to do. Because once you enter into private practice, you open the door, shutter is up, your meter is on, because your investments, your interest, your repayment, lot of things. So people are stressed out because of that, and that's how they choose the wrong path, because that liability is so high. So everybody is having pure tone, impedance, ABR, SSR, so I should have it. No, think about it, what you want to do it. And these instruments need to add on gradually. First, bread and butter, sustainability of your clinic, supporting your family, made your good living about it, then expansion. It's not always that, Daisy and look and all other thing, but they just get trapped into it. So Because again, the business model is not discussed and taught in the education program. It's a very complex thing. One thing is on the demand and the manpower who can provide that services. That's one of the thing. Now OTC, over the counter hearing aids, will be. I mean, they were to release month of August, I think, because of COVID, things have got pushed a little forward. But that will going to happen. First, it was only for mild hearing loss. Now I think the criteria is increased to moderately severe and all that. So that's not right as such. And secondly, industry is also pushing for it. So, but the flip side of it, the audiologist number is so small that our voice will not be heard. See, in United States, there are only 14,000 audiologists. Because I'm in Asha, so I know the number very well. Maybe here and there, but that's kind of thing. Now, out of that 14,000, how many are in teaching program and how many are in hospital setups? So let's take out, all 50% of those people as well. Now, in 7,000 lot left, may not be all are in hearing aid practice. So hearing aid practice maybe 4 or 5,000, that's it. And now how many dispensers are in United States? So 15, 20,000. Europe, same story. Australia, New Zealand. So it's going to take long. But now what I feel, online sale is happening, okay, in India. People come with it. If they ask us, we tell them the merits, demerits, and all other things. If person comes with it and they say, I have got this hearing aid, online ke program it. I give the service. I said, you need to do the audiometry test done, then I'll do the programming, these are my charges. And that whatever fine tuning is valid only for 1 week. If you come within 1 week to tweak anything, we'll do free of cost. If you come 1 week later, it will be chargeable again. Because there is no point, saying that ban this, ban that. We can't stop it. And the person has the hearing aid in his hand. He is in need of it. So I need to give service to him. And what we have noticed, these are the people that, they start coming to us for batteries, repairs, and then, then they say, oh, this was a wrong choice. I think I need to change the hearing aid. And they become our customers. So you see, I can't stop online sale. I don't have powers. And things will not stand in the court of law also. Again, the same story. We don't have statistics. We don't have to show how many online sale, how many fitted with by professional, how many done by non-audiologists, what companies are doing, what companies' strategies are. Everything is, mutti ban. We don't know what's happening. So how do you go with even, I thought about PIL also, but where is the evidence to show all that? So might as well give service to people. That's what I feel. And then we will shine out that we are different from others. And that's how I feel. I have a very proactive way that just go with it and bring the change. Okay, two boys. Both of them are in England right now. Elder one has a background of economics, but now he's in software. He and his wife, my daughter-in-law, both of them are in software. My younger son, Kanad, who has done audiology speech from Bharati Vidyapit, and that was very interesting. In second year itself, he developed tremendous interest in neurology. And he started reading a lot about neurology. And so after graduation, he said, I want to study neuroscience. And so he went to Nottingham University, did his master's in neuroscience, then a PhD in neuroimaging. And he sort of was very lucky to work in Sir Mansfield Lab, where the MRI was invented, So currently he's working on that 7 Tesla machine, so highest machine. And now he is doing his postdoctoral position in Cambridge University. So I really feel good about speech and hearing person can make, this kind of a road. I tell all the extension students also that you like clinical service, that's fine, but explore these other areas also, that neurocognitive area, neuroscience, the forensic, audiology or voice. So many things are there. So just wrote thing about testing. There's the scope is phenomenal. Future is ours. The future is for us. Language also, speech and language means like in speech and language, what you consider 9 domains are there for you, all those. And then everywhere now that super specialty is coming. See, special interest group in ASHA, there are more than 20 now groups are there, I think 26 or something. So that kind of specialization is happening. So it's a lot of things are there. He is a family physician by profession as such, and he had his own independent practice, and I was doing my own thing as such. But then he started liking that, talking to people and not managing and all other things. So he really voluntarily decided to join my business. So it's sort of a kind of administration and other thing. And very sad part of in Indian scenario, doctor has to be a male person. Doctor cannot be female. So people walk in and then say, we want to meet Dr. Mankey. So if I go out there and say, no, we want to meet sir. So he has become a face. It's very nicely it works out. So he talks to people and they say, okay, now I understood your problem. Now my audiologist will do the testing. Or my wife is, your problem is so unique, so my wife will address this problem. My pleasure. I enjoyed sort of sharing all my, feelings and all. Anyway, thank you so much. You have been doing wonderful job, spending your time and everything, because now you have to do a lot of editing and everything. So